Good morning. It's Hump Day. Welcome to Get Real America. I'm Bill Edwards. Brittany Brown has the day off, and she will be back with us tomorrow. Glad to have you aboard here, and welcome. It's good to have you. It's a little overcast and rainy here in Savannah right now. We have 62 degrees, some overcast skies, one of those little misty type things. So be careful as you're going to work this morning. Well, what's President Biden's latest act of treason? Well, they're out in San Francisco, that pristine city of San Francisco. Everybody said they could never clean it up. They couldn't clean it up for the hardworking, tax-paying Americans, but boy, they sure could get it clean for Ricochet Rabbit. Xi Jinping is in town. I think we ought to have the Xi Jinping tour. I think you ought to go to Los Angeles. Maybe they clean that place up. Chicago and New York. Maybe they clean those cities up as well, and we could get this thing under control. So, Mr. Ping, welcome aboard. But the president's set to strike a deal with China that they say would limit the use of artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons. And experts say this is an incredibly stupid decision. But then this guy is an expert on stupid decisions. Look up stupid decisions in the dictionary. Joe Biden's picture should be there. He met with the Chinese President Ping yesterday at the Asia Pacific Economic Conference, or known as APEC, in San Francisco, where, of course, where they have rice-a-roni, the San Francisco treat. Of course, if you ask anybody in San Francisco about rice-a-roni, they say, what? The what? But anyway, the two leaders are expected to also sign an agreement to limit AI's use in military applications, according to a report from the Business Insider. And if you can't trust the Chinese, the communist Chinese, who can you trust? Well, yesterday there was finally a rally for Israel, and it was amazing, the big turnout. There was a bigger turnout than they expected because the media experts said there wouldn't be, it maybe be 100,000. There was probably at least 3 times that. And it was amazing, as we learned from this report. Even the National Barak Channel had a good report on this. Starting with Lester.
Here at home, they came to Washington by the tens of thousands today in a show of support for Israel to press for the release of hostages held by Hamas and end anti-Semitic attacks. Gabe Gutierrez reports.
In the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, a dramatic show of solidarity, the largest pro-Israel demonstration in the U.S. since the war began.
The amount of anti-Semitism in America is something that in my life I never, ever thought I would see.
Around the National Mall, ramped up security. Overnight, Jewish groups bussed in members from around the country.
When you first saw the images coming out of Israel on October 7th, what went through your head?
Disbelief.
Hetty Milgram came here from Cleveland. Her parents survived the Holocaust.
We are standing up for our people and for what we know is right.
Speaker after speaker calling for an end to anti-Semitic attacks around the world and for the safe return of Hamas's captives.
Today, President Biden with a message for the hostages' families.
Hang in there, we're coming.
But as the fighting rages in Gaza, the worldwide outcry has intensified. Over the last few days, a massive pro-Palestinian demonstration in London and rallies in New York, Boston, and Miami Beach. Just yesterday in Chicago, more than 100 arrests as this group called for a ceasefire.
We don't want the United States to continually fund ethnic cleansing.
Tonight, here in Washington, there is uncertainty on the home front. This couple has a son fighting with the Israeli Defense Forces in Gaza. They haven't heard from him for a week and a half.
My sleepless nights are hoping that I don't get a phone call and hoping that he comes home soon and that they're all safe.
The Department of Homeland Security had raised the security threat level for today's event, but there were no arrests and no major counter demonstrations.
Isn't that amazing? Because and here's some footage of them spray painting things on the White House and monuments, and people getting rioting and trying to burn down buildings and burn American flags. Let's take a look. Oh, it didn't happen. Well, okay, so we don't have any video of that because it doesn't exist. Thank you very much. But I do believe that with this situation with President Biden handing China this big win on this military deal, by the way, I bet that's not going to stop the checks coming into the Biden crime syndicate. But of course, if you listen to Cringe Jean-Pierre, the most incompetent boobette in the history of press secretaries at the White House, zero evidence of any of this. Zero evidence. And by the way, if you ask about the cocaine that was found at the White House and who put it there, she says that's an incredibly incompetent question. Okay. Meanwhile, there was some better news as far as things go.
Around the holiday that started right here in D.C. News 4's Derek Ward is going to take us inside the first National Veterans Day Parade and explain what it means to those who served.
There's been a tradition of Veterans Day observances in the nation's capital.
But we've never had a national Veterans Parade, and this is historic, as you say. It's the first time ever, and it's long, long overdue.
Have given all of us the right to have the republic and the democracy we have, to sustain it. So this is the first ever inaugural event to honor veterans of all backgrounds. That's why it's so important that this become one event that never is missed.
Shortly after noon, the first of the band stepped off along Constitution Avenue. But long before preparations paid off, the spirit of the day was already awakened in one veteran from Arkansas. He's still in service to his country. Where there was once morning reveille, there's now something else.
And I was able to pray on the Capitol steps for our country. And, you know, that as a veteran, that means a lot to me.
The oath James Zumwalt took still holds.
I signed that dotted line in September the 28th of 1998. I did 10 years. I got out in 2008.
He finds a new call of duty to protect against a threat that's creeping from within, a deeply divided populace. His chief of staff is now a higher being.
He don't see color.
So there you have it. Both ends of the spectrum, and we had a great rally yesterday. It was interesting that the Department of Defense and others, as well as, of course, our Justice Department and the FBI, thought that it was necessary to call out National Guard and everything else for this crowd. Now, I was hoping for the opposite, that say, okay, that's going to protect them in case some of these Tide Pod eating, misinformed left-wing cretins, Hamas supporting idiots from Columbia University showed up, or George Washington University showed up to cause trouble. But they were probably expecting trouble from this crowd. I'll bet you the place was cleaner, just like when we had the tea parties. That we were around when the Dalai Lama was president and made the marches up to Washington then. We left the place cleaner than when it was when we got there. And the police said that they had never encountered a crowd that was so polite, so considerate. And later in the show today, we're going to show you a citizen who probably saved a policeman's life a little bit later on in the show. Coming up next, had a chance to go to Israel to do my radio show back in 2004. Hard to believe it's been coming up on 20 years now. But met a wonderful gentleman who gave us a tour of the new fence at the time that they had there, Jonathan Davis. We had the first part of his interview that we did last week. We talked with him from Israel about what's going on and what the feeling is inside of Israel. And maybe it's not as bad as you might think. From what the national news media says, they feel relatively safe, but they live in a constant state of chances of having a war. And Jonathan will give us his thoughts coming up next. He is the vice president of IDC Herzliya, one of the biggest universities in Israel. Jonathan Davis on deck. Stay real. Foxy Loxy, Coffee Fox, and Henny Penny, making life better for Savannahans with their kolaches, tacos, coffees. They're just amazing. Buy local and keep the torch lit. Greetings.
I'm Brittany Brown.
I'm Bill Edwards.
We're the co-hosts of Get Real America.
We're the CEO and the president of something we call the Local Spin, and there's a reason we call it the Local Spin.
We want to cover stories that really impact your life at the local level. Don't have a local business? No problem. If you know people that have a local business, make sure you reach out to them and let them know that they should advertise on our show.
Our rates are extremely reasonable, a lot better than you find in most of the media in this town, and you will get results. I promise. You will be investing in something that's important.
If you don't have the ability to donate, make sure you like our page and share it with your friends. Have you always wanted to own a local media company? Well, now's your opportunity.
Here we are.
Make sure you become an investor today. Make sure that you go to thelocalspin.com/GRA and donate there. We want to provide an evening and morning news to you in a way that you've never seen before, but we need your help.
Yeah, this is something that what NPR said that they were supposed to be. NPR gets something in the range of $450 million of your tax money every year to slant the news the way they want to and to not cover stories that they need to be covering.
You need local media. Make sure to check us out and donate today.
What I see coming out when I was working in television news, I noticed the kids that were coming in over the years were getting dumber and dumber, knew nothing about history. I had to explain to one of our anchors one time who the hell Adolf Hitler was, and this has been 25 or 30 years ago.
I'll tell you something interesting about Adolf Hitler. I went to visit the head of a department of political science at an extremely outstanding American university whose name will remain nameless. And this was after the leader of Iran appeared at this specific university and spoke there. Now, we know who the leader of Iran is. On this person's mission statement is to destroy Israel. And this person's mission statement is to hang gay people. But this specific institution allowed that person to speak at their university. And so this person said to me, look, that's academic freedom. And that's freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So I asked him a question. Would you have allowed Adolf Hitler to speak at your university? And the answer was a resounding yes. A resounding yes. Because that's freedom of expression. That's complete academic freedom. Complete academic freedom is allowing anyone who wishes to speak to speak. Now, the Hamas atrocities, okay, which took place in the south of Israel, who have presidents of major universities in the United States who have a problem calling out Hamas on this, who have a problem calling Hamas terrorists. Now, the Hamas are no different than the Nazis or the Taliban or Al-Qaeda, but some of the major networks in the United States call these people militants. They will call it Hamas militants instead of Hamas terrorists. Take a look at the BBC, for example. Take a look at the BBC. As far as the BBC is concerned, these Hamas terrorists are practically freedom fighters. Okay? Freedom fighters. Okay? Freedom fighters who rape women, who kidnap babies, who kidnap elderly people, who poke a person's eye out with a stick, who carve a baby out of a mother's stomach, okay, while the mother is still alive. I have videotapes here of atrocities that took place, which which we shared, by the way, with a number of individuals in the United States. We shared some of these videotapes with American leaders and British leaders, and I think that once they saw these tapes, they understood what we're dealing with here.
Jonathan, this has been so horrific. I can't even begin to imagine. And the reaction that we're getting here is just pathetic as far as I'm concerned. And I am concerned for the Jewish community. And we have a good one here. You know, you've been here. You've talked to them.
Look, I mean, I think it's important that there should be a voice
exactly.
in the United States of individuals who believe in their country, who believe in freedom and democracy, who believe in volunteering, or actually not volunteering, but joining the American Armed Forces and serving in key places there, joining West Point, joining the Naval Academy, joining the Air Force Academy, and being in positions to defend the United States, and being active. We, by the way, have a master's degree here at my university in counterterrorism, where we have individuals like these who have served. And in the past, when I've served in exercises together with the American Armed Forces here over the years, when I've met some of the officers, these are the finest of the United States. And I don't care what they vote. as long as they meet the profile of caring about their country, caring about their flag, caring about the Declaration of Independence, caring about respecting the American flag and singing the national anthem, okay, and not degrading it. And those are the backbone of the United States. Those people are the backbone of the United States. The people who stand for the national anthem of the United States are the backbone of the United States. And there are some radicalized groups that like to make a big deal of being anti-patriotic for the sake of being anti-patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
But America is still America. And I think you know what I mean. I'm trying to be politically correct here, okay, which is difficult for me. But you know what I mean.
Yes, sir. Well, I tell you what, it bothers me maybe that you wonder that the White House and all talks out of both sides of their mouths. The president went over there, albeit in a war zone, things of that nature. And he says he's going to support Israel, but yet the White House came out with this thing about how they were so concerned about Islamophobia over here, with good reason. I think we have Islamophobia for a good reason, but the fact that they would come up with that and not criticize the Palestinian protesters who are supporters, we should say, that are causing Jewish students to be terrified to even go to class. Told, they were locked in a library in one place and worried about their safety.
Well, first of all, I look at things on a macro level.
Mm-hmm.
We have the vote of the United States and Great Britain in the Security Council. That's the most important thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the support of the United States right now in allowing us to do in Gaza what we need to do in Gaza, which is basically neutralize Hamas Nazi type terrorists. Okay. So that's another thing that we need to do, and we're being allowed to do it. We've been asked if we can have some humanitarian corridors once in a while to bring in some water and to bring in some food. We've agreed to that, but we don't allow for any petroleum or oil, okay,
Mm-hmm.
to be brought into Gaza. So on a macro level, the United States is supporting us. On a more micro level, when it comes to the United States of America, on a more micro level, I'm pretty sure that there are probably all kinds of political interests that go into trying to placate the progressive part of the Democratic Party and make sure that they don't lose them in an upcoming election or something like this and everything else. And so probably they have to look at their constituency and placate them. For me, right now, the most important thing is that veto in the United Nations and allowing us to finish off these Hamas terrorists. That's the main thing. On a micro level, they probably, they have to cater to Islamophobia. Although I haven't seen too many innocent Islamic civilians in the United States attacked recently. I haven't seen any mosques attacked recently,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope for it. But I've seen more Jewish people attacked per capita than I have seen Muslim people attacked.
No doubt.
And I've seen some Jewish people stabbed and locked in the library and a million other things. And I think it's a very good idea for the White House. I know that the White House has a person they appointed to deal with anti-Semitism in the United States. I also depend a lot on some of the local police forces who sometimes get it. Some of the local police forces get it, even though they're defunded, they still get it, because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who volunteer, who decide to be police persons are frequently patriotic Americans who believe in keeping order, and they do stand, okay, for the national anthem. So a lot also depends on locally who the chief of the police is. I'm hoping that where you are in Savannah, the chief of police will know how to protect the synagogues, and I hope he will know that if any Jews are in danger in Savannah, Georgia, okay, that they'll know how to deal with it. We have an annual conference here in the fight against counterterrorism. We've turned counterterrorism into an academic subject at my university.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we always have guests coming from the United States, from various police forces, from NYPD, from LAPD, from all of the guys who fight terrorism. And those folks are also, in my opinion, part of what the United States stands for. And so I believe those Jewish communities, even if there isn't some statement coming out of Washington, D.C., the local communities, in my opinion, can depend on those people. But maybe I'm naive, okay? But I believe they can.
Jonathan, I want to know how you're doing, how the things are going, what the atmosphere is like when you're sitting there and we see all these rockets going in, and I worry about you, your university, your community. What are you dealing with right now?
Well, we do have rockets being fired and missiles being fired from the direction of Hamastan, and from the direction of Hezbollah, and from the direction of Yemen. The Houthis, who fired 10 guided missiles in our direction, which were all intercepted. We are able to intercept the vast majority of these projectiles due to the Iron Dome, which was developed here in Israel together with American and Israeli technology combined, and also through the Arrow 2 missile system and other missile systems which we have. And so basically, we have not incurred, we've hardly incurred casualties due to these missiles and rockets because we've intercepted most of them. The Israeli public is very, very disciplined, and they know that if they have 1.5 minutes to get to a safe room or to a shelter, they abide by the rules and regulations. And on a number of occasions, some of the apartments were hit or some of the houses were hit, but nothing happened to the civilians because they were in these safe rooms, which basically protect them. It's like very, very enforced cement, very thick enforced cement that basically nothing can penetrate. And so basically they've been protected by that. We've had a few acts of terrorism coming out of Judea and Samaria, which I think we've contained pretty well. The only major calamity that happened here is 30 days ago, on that day when the Hamas surprised us and sent 3,500 people into a farming region, which is basically, that's part of the fruit basket of the state of Israel. They grow a lot of fruits down there. They've got dairy farms. They're like good old Midwestern farmers down there, patriotic, good people, many of them serving in combat units. And they basically went into those people's homes and they raped women and they pillaged. And the things they did to these people, I don't even want to mention on TV. I can share with you 3 video clips if you want to share them, maybe with some other decision makers. When I saw, by the way, the spokesperson of the White House crying on CNN. I mean, I witnessed him crying on CNN. I mean, tears started coming down his cheeks. It's because we have the wisdom to show the leadership of the United States and the spokesman of the White House exactly what happened. And when a good old American sees this, regardless of what political party they're in, there are good members of the Democratic Party who have kids who have served in the American Armed Forces, and there are good kids of the Republicans, and there are Republicans themselves who have served, and Democrats themselves who have served. And when there are some others on the more radical left who probably don't get it, that's fine. But the backbone of any normal member of the backbone of the United States of America who sees these video clips can't help but cry, because they put their own relatives into their shoes and they see what these people did. And like you said, this is the greatest calamity since the Holocaust when it comes to the murder of innocent civilians. And not just the murder of innocent civilians, but what Hamas did is actually crueler than Al-Qaeda. Crueler than Al-Qaeda, okay? And so basically now we're resilient in this country. This country has come together. It's totally united. On many of the farms now that lack human resource to pick the crops, tens of thousands of Israelis have volunteered to go and pick the crops themselves. And my students here, hundreds of my students here, have gone to pick crops not far from here on farms. And they very proudly showed me like huge, huge bushels of tomatoes, of cherry tomatoes they picked today. Like thousands of these cherry tomatoes that these kids pick, okay? And so we're resilient about that. Our School of Psychology is resilient of fighting PTSD amongst our students who may need it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a logistics team here that sends all the goods to the front that the reservists need. I know there's a request for socks and a request for underwear, a request for LED lamps and lamps that fit on your head. There's a request for these camelbacks because they like to go into battle with these with the inside of those camelbacks so they can drink water through those straws,
Mm-hmm.
not have to take a canteen out. It's a lot better. All of those requests, we're meeting those requests from the campus here. It's beautiful to see the unity of the country. This country may have differences. There may be a left wing, there may be centrists, and there may be right wing. There may be a radical left, and even a reactionary right here. But when it comes to the survival of Israel, all these guys are there in their combat units. You'll see some guy who usually is in the radical left here, but that guy is right now in Navy SEALs.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is a pilot. That guy is in some reconnaissance unit, and that guy is fighting as fiercely as a person who's far to the right. They understand who this enemy is. They've all been trained to be in the Israeli armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Hamas made a huge mistake because we're going to neutralize Gaza. We're going to neutralize Hamastan as it was. We will take over every inch. We will neutralize every single terrorist we have to. Those who escape amongst the leadership, based on our timeline, wherever they live in the world, there's a death warrant on each of them. They may be living in some country, which I won't mention the name of right now, which might be able to help us with negotiations with the hostages. So I'm not mentioning the name. Okay, but one day after this war and after the hostages are back, if some of these Hamas leadership are living in some of these 5-star hotels in some of these Arab countries, they better hide in some basement because there's a death warrant on them, just like the people who perpetrated the Munich massacre in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
Every member of the PLO who perpetrated that massacre, we assisted them in joining their creator. Okay.
Yeah.
Now each of these terrorists believe that they get 72 virgins in heaven
Mm-hmm.
when they sacrifice themselves for whatever they think they're doing. I'm telling you, they're going to run out of virgins in heaven. Okay, they're going to run out of virgins. There aren't going to be enough virgins around. Okay, maybe they're going to meet a 72-year-old virgin in heaven. Okay, but there won't be enough regular virgins for them to each have 72 virgins. Okay, because they're going to need millions of virgins by the time we're finished wiping out these terrorists. I hope what I said is not unpolitically correct. Okay, but you know, I'm talking to you, Bill. We've had a few good beers in Savannah. We've had a great time, and it's about time we met again. Iris and I, the time we had in Savannah was amazing. You took us to such a great place on the river there, with such great music, and some good grilled fish.
Yeah.
Okay, and some great beer, some great Savannah beer, and so you know we always look for the half a cup that's full over here. So we're resilient. When I meet a person like you, who is a patriot, and does believe in justice and truth over fake news, it warms our hearts, raises our morale.
Well, Jonathan, we build the best private jets in the world here at Gulfstream. I wish we could send one for you and Iris to come over because the Shalom Y'all Jewish Food Festival is this Sunday. So I'd love for you to come over here and sample some of that great kosher food here.
I'll tell you, after this war, we'll get together.
Please.
My house is open. I gotta have a nice swimming pool. All my kids, you know, they took off from the nest. They left us. All their bedrooms are empty. There's room for you, my friend. Room for you to come and visit us. You park in our place.
All right.
Save you money on a hotel. Israeli hotels are very expensive. So, you know, it's not going to be a B&B. All on us, Bill. I gotta tell you, there's a few officers who served in the American Armed Forces that we exercised with here.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, when we finish an exercise like that, they'd come here with their families, and they'd stay with me. They'd use my house as a base of operations.
Uh-huh.
They'd drive with their car to the Sea of Galilee to see all the holy places. They'd go to Nazareth to see where Jesus took off from some cliff.
Mm-hmm.
They'd go to the Sea of Galilee to see where Jesus walked on the water. They'd go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but they used my house as a base. And I was very proud of it. So I want you to use my house as a base. Okay? And,
yes, sir.
And because we are brothers, my friend.
Amen. I'm outranked and outnumbered, but I appreciate it, sir. And by the way, Jonathan, do you know what a Jewish pirate says?
What does he say?
Ahoy vey.
Sounds like a good entree to the Jewish food festival when you eat too much.
Always do, and it's great. One of the rabbis here has his Amen Lo Mein that is really, really good. So
sounds like great stuff. Look, Savannah's the oldest Jewish community in the United States, so it's serious.
That's true. That's true. Temple Mikveh Israel, and we're good friends with the rabbi there, Robert Haas. He's very good, and he's a frequent visitor with us. Jonathan, all the best. Our prayers are with you and Iris and your whole family and the university, IDC Herzliya. And we look forward to staying in touch. I'll be back a lot sooner than I was last time. And once again, because you can't negotiate with terrorists. You've got to get rid of these bastards, and we're for you.
Big hugs, main man. Big hugs.
Likewise. God bless. We'll see you again soon.
God bless. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time. Bye. Foxy Loxy, Coffee Fox, and Henny Penny, making life better for Savannahans with their kolaches, tacos, coffees. They're just amazing. Buy local and keep the torch lit. Welcome back to Get Real America. Here it is Wednesday. We're halfway through the month of November. We have Thanksgiving coming up a couple of weeks from tomorrow. Hope you're going to have a good one. Our weather right now is a little on the rainy side here in Savannah. It's overcast, and we have right now currently 60 degrees. But it's going to be clearing up for the weekend. By the way, speaking of the weekend, there is a fantastic event that goes on at the Savannah International Trade and Convention Center, and that's going to be Christmas made in the South. And so if you want to do some excellent Christmas shopping and beyond, then I suggest you get out there. It's going to be this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Convention Center. Give yourself a little extra time because they're still there's a lot of construction going on over there, and it'll be nice if they ever get it finished. And there's a worry that there's been another construction delay, which is not making our Chamber of Commerce very happy because we already have groups that are booked for that facility that's supposed to be completed by next April, not this coming April. I think it's a week out, but nevertheless, let's hope that the things will get a little better. But coming up this weekend, you might want to enjoy that. The Christmas Made in the South. It's on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the International Trade and Convention Center. Meanwhile, one of the things that is going on in yesterday, while all of the other, there was a pro-Israeli rally that was going on in Washington. By the way, the president wasn't there. He's out in San Francisco, as you know, stabbing the country in the back. And Kamala Harris, the vice president, the border czar, should have been there, but she wasn't. Believe it or not, Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House, and Lucky Chucky Schumer, who happens to be Jewish, by the way, actually did show up. So kudos to them. Give credit where credit's due. But here's what other Democrats were doing. at the taxpayers' dime yesterday and before.
We are congressional staffers on Capitol Hill, and we are no longer comfortable being silent.
We were horrified by the brutal October 7th attacks on Israeli civilians, and we are horrified by the overwhelming response by the Israeli government that has killed thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Our constituents are pleading for a ceasefire, and we are the staffers answering their calls every day.
Most of our bosses on Capitol Hill are not listening to the people they represent. We demand our leaders speak up, call for a ceasefire, a release of all hostages, and an immediate de-escalation now. We are gathered here today to mourn the loss of every single beautiful and innocent life. We join now in a moment of silence in interfaith prayer for those who we have lost.
Because this is what we are dealing with now.
Heartwarming, isn't it? Yes, sirree. Why don't you talk to the Hamas terrorists? Because they started this. And for those who have been in public school for the last 20 or 30 years, the Gaza Strip was given to the Palestinians. That was supposed to be the Palestinian. Palestine doesn't exist, by the way. It's not a real country. It's just a concept. And the fact that they've got their own stupid flag is beyond comprehension, and that we ought to be burning those around here. This is ridiculous. Israel gave them that property. They moved the Jewish communities out. People were uprooted from their homes 20 years ago and thrown out and had to redirect themselves and resettle in Israel someplace. It is just pathetic what people don't know, and these Tide Pod eating cretins who are running around with these flags and yelling these anti-Semitic remarks have no clue. The Palestinians were given the land to form their country, and they didn't. And they voted for these Hamas cretins, so they're getting exactly what they deserve. Just like the people in Chicago who are now complaining to the mayor, who was, and by the way, they had a chance to get a much better one last time, but they didn't. They reelected somebody who was just as big an idiot as the one they had before, if not bigger, and are complaining about all the illegal aliens coming in. Well, you voted for this. Sooner or later, we keep telling people you have to understand the correlation between your vote and what happens. And speaking of getting what you vote for, how about not enforcing the laws? Well, Walmart has decided to do a little something up. Finally, a corporate America is coming to, at least one corporation is coming to its senses that maybe some police action might help the shoplifting situation right up the road in our capital.
Because this is what we are dealing with now. Walmart decided to hire their own police force to stop theft that reached extreme numbers. The billion-dollar company does not like losing its money, so it took a bold step to open an in-house police station inside the store to stop incidents like this. The move aims to increase security and combat theft. The first Walmart to have a police station is in Atlanta.
Walking into Walmart, lots of cops.
Coming after Walmart locking up many of its items with locks like in here, in hopes to reduce theft, but it didn't work and only made other shoppers' experience less pleasant.
Bleach on the lock and key. Ooh, detergent soap, dishwashing soap, lock and key. Ooh, Lord, I got to elevate myself. This is the ghetto.
Do you think after adding a police station inside Walmart, theft will be stopped? And will other stores like Target follow?
Well, let's hope so. The idiots that run Target, maybe this will be a lesson to them as well. You start acting and start enforcing the law, and all of a sudden, crime starts dropping. It's amazing. It's an amazing correlation. It only works, 100% of the time. But the longer you let this go on, there was one store that I saw, I think it's in California, where else, where they are now putting pictures of items on the shelf. So that you have to go say, you take the card, like you do at where you go to buy a computer somewhere, and it says, here's that computer, but we'll go we got one in the box, and we got them in the boxes back in the back. So you take the card out and you take it to the desk and they go get it. That's what they're doing with all of their products now, instead of actually enforcing the law. So kudos to Walmart for maybe getting the ball rolling. Sometimes when you get that first olive out of the bottle, the rest of them start coming a little easier. Well, if this isn't poetic justice, I don't know what is. Back to San Francisco.
San Francisco police tonight are investigating the robbery of a foreign news crew covering the APEC summit. This happened just before 5 o'clock last night in the area of Broadway in Columbus. The journalists are from Czech Republic Public Television Station. They told police that a vehicle stopped on the street and 3 armed men got out and approached them. The suspects demanded their production equipment and the victims complied. The suspects got back into their vehicle and drove away. The news crew posted a tweet about the incident on X. A translated version says, "Thank you very much for the support we received, and CT News will keep shooting. We are here for the U.S. President's Summit with the Chinese leader, and we'll be there, as always, for CT."
Now, this goes along, I think it was in Chicago about a week or so ago that they did, or maybe it was Washington. A TV crew went out to do a report on the increasing crime there, and they got robbed, and their equipment was taken. This equipment's expensive. A good television camera these days costs them anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. It is, and they could go up, and of course they've come down dramatically. Our studio cameras that when the first color cameras started coming along were in the range of $80,000 to $100,000 a piece. So the prices have come down simply because of microchipping and all the other technology that we've developed over the years. But these cameras can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 or more. And that does not account, of course, of the microphones, the lights, the cables, everything else that are batteries that are required to run all the operations. So they get quite a haul, and they sell this stuff on the black market, and they make a lot of money doing it. It's just pathetic. Well, how much do we know about our presidents? One of the things that we've been saying over the time that we've been on here is that Prager University has some of the best videos. They're making I presume they'll do all the presidents eventually. They've done about 10 or 12 now, and they are well worth seeing. And if you have a kid in public school, if you have a kid in any school, you ought to tell them they should be showing these as a requirement in our history courses. And after this, after we pause for this, we're going to come back and tell you about a guy that's not very popular around here, maybe because of something called the Civil War. But Ulysses S. Grant, the guy on the $50 bill. So let's learn a little bit more about him as we come back, and also talk to see the action of an American hero who saved a cop yesterday out in L.A. Foxy Loxy, Coffee Fox, and Henny Penny, making life better for Savannahans with their kolaches, tacos, coffees. They're just amazing. Buy local and keep the torch lit.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
The year was 1862. America was in the depths of the Civil War. Looking back, it's easy to believe that a Union victory was inevitable. The North had more money, more population, more industry, but no one thought that at the time. In the first year of the war, it looked as if the South would win. A series of high-profile victories in the East convinced many that Confederates were better fighters under better leaders. Where would President Lincoln find a battlefield general who could do for the Union what Robert E. Lee was doing for the Confederacy? Lead it to victory. The man he found, the man who saved the Union, was Ulysses S. Grant. He wasn't Lincoln's first choice, or second, or third. In fact, when the war started in 1861, Lincoln had no idea who Ulysses S. Grant was. Hardly surprising, since at the time Grant was selling hats to farmers' wives in a small town in Illinois. His rise to glory is one of the most amazing stories in American history. Born in Ohio on April 27, 1822, Grant had no ambition to be a soldier. His father pushed him into it, thinking he wasn't suited for much else. Grant's West Point career wasn't especially distinguished either, but during the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848, Grant proved himself to be an officer of unusual ability. He was cool under fire, daring but rarely reckless. Even more important, the men under his command trusted him. After that war, Grant returned to St. Louis to marry his fiancée, Julia Dent, the daughter of a slave-owning Missouri farmer. Grant was never happier than when he was with Julia, and he was never unhappier than when he was not. Unfortunately, in this period, Army life forced them to be separated, sometimes for many months. To assuage his loneliness, Grant started to drink. While in a distant posting in Northern California, 1,000 miles from Julia, his drinking got the better of him. He resigned his Army commission to avoid an embarrassing court-martial. It was downhill from there, one business venture failing after another. By 1860, thoroughly humiliated with no money and no prospects, he was back working for his father in the small town of Galena, Illinois. Then the Civil War happened. The Union was in desperate need of experienced soldiers. Grant volunteered. His leadership skills were immediately obvious. He quickly advanced through the ranks. In a little more than 6 months, he scored 2 major victories at Fort Henry and Fort Donelson along the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. He followed these up with victory in the largest battle in American history up to that time, the Battle of Shiloh, making him a true Union hero in a cause that was starved for heroes. There was nothing flashy about Grant's generalship. All he did was win. Unlike the overly cautious generals that drove President Lincoln to distraction, Grant's battle plan was to always move forward, always put pressure on his foes. Any advantage the Union had in technology or manpower, he employed to the fullest. Like Napoleon, Grant was a superb reader of maps. He could identify the enemy's vulnerabilities and exploit them, as he did in his brilliant 1863 campaign for Vicksburg, a campaign that is still studied at war colleges. In March 1864, Lincoln made Grant commander of all the Union armies. It took more than a year of the war's hardest fighting before Lee surrendered and the war finally came to an end. By this point, the president and his general had developed a close bond. Shortly after Grant returned to Washington, Lincoln invited the Grants to join him and Mary Lincoln at Ford's Theater. Grant accepted. Julia, however, had developed an intense dislike for Mary Lincoln and insisted that her husband get out of the commitment. Embarrassed, Grant did. That night, in that theater, Lincoln was assassinated. As the commander of all Union armies, Grant was placed in a terrible bind, having to walk a tightrope between new President Andrew Johnson's pro-South agenda, which favored the old white aristocracy, and protecting, as Lincoln intended, the newly won rights of the freed slaves. He resolved his dilemma by deciding to run for president. Grant had saved America once as a general. Could he save it again as a politician? Running as the Republican candidate for president, Grant easily won election in 1868, becoming the 18th president of the United States. He won again in 1872. During his tenure, he fought to secure the passage of the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed all American citizens the right to vote, regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. He created the Department of Justice, broke up the Ku Klux Klan, and advocated for the rights of Indians. He presided over the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad and a rapidly expanding industrial economy. There was a dark side to his presidency, however. His administration was dogged by charges of financial impropriety, and he left office under a cloud. But Grant the man remained a popular figure. Just days before his death on July 23, 1885, he completed his autobiography. It became one of the best-selling books of the 19th century. Of Grant's amazing life, Frederick Douglass wrote a fitting epitaph. In him, the Negro found a protector, the Indian, a friend, a vanquished foe, a brother, an imperiled nation, a savior. I'm Gary Edelman, Chief Historian at the American Battlefield Trust for Prager University. Thank you.
And if you want to make a donation to Prager, it is tax deductible. Those videos are fantastic. Whether you like Grant or not, I'd never thought of him but there's a lot of these people that we don't know a whole lot about. I'm always amazed. So I go to, sometimes we take our grandkids to Barnes & Noble, and they have that the children's reading section. And they have these great books called Who Is or Who Was So-and-so. Considering, they have one on Grant, there is one on Paul Revere. Now, we know about Paul Revere from the Midnight Ride, of course. But we know about Paul Revere from the Midnight Ride because of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem that was written 70 years after the fact. Two other men rode that night. But Listen, my children, you shall hear the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere sounds a lot better than Listen, my children, you shall hear the Midnight Ride of William Benz. Whoever else rode that night. The three rode, Paul Revere gets the credit. But who was he? What else do we know about him? And these little booklets are amazing in telling it. He was a silversmith and worked in silver and pewter and things of that nature, and is buried up in Boston. Let me get a chance to go to Boston River, they go into the river and you see it. But they go by these cemeteries where people like Benjamin Franklin and all are buried, and it's just Paul Revere is buried, and it is just an amazing event. So a vacation trip or whatever you want to do. My wife and I were there for Christmas a few years ago. Got to hear the Boston Pops performing their Christmas concert at Boston Hall. It was just an amazing experience. As a classical music buff, I had a lot of recordings of the Boston Orchestra, Boston Symphony Orchestra, and to be in that hall listening to that orchestra was just a great experience. By the way, Thanksgiving is coming. We said it's 2 weeks from tomorrow, and our good buddy Paula Deen is on the cover of Women's World this week. Once again, giving her some of her recipes for Thanksgiving. This is a great book, by the way. I think the women's magazines have a lot more information than what the guys, the books for the guys have. A lot of interesting stuff, great recipes in there. And by the way, speaking of great recipes, if you want to make a great dip, a sweet dip, things like graham crackers in. One of my favorites. I'm not a big hazelnut fan, but Nutella is a pretty darn good spread. It's kind of like it's kind of like peanut butter, but it's made with hazelnuts instead of peanuts. Hence, it's not peanut butter. But it is. But Nutella is really good if you will mix get a small container jar of Nutella. Get a small tub of Cool Whip. Mix the two together. Your tongue will throw a party for your mouth. It is terrific. A great dip for things like graham crackers and others. So if you're looking for a sweet dip for the holidays, you're welcome. Speaking of being you're welcome, how about what value do you give, or what thanks do you give to somebody who saves your life, especially in what turned into a combat zone yesterday in Los Angeles, where a good Samaritan saved the life of a cop putting his own life in danger. And here's how it went.
An HPD officer shot in the leg during a gun battle on the Southwest Freeway is recovering this morning. The suspect, accused of carjacking, is dead after opening fire after crashing into several vehicles on the Southwest Freeway. And during the shooting, a man risked his own life, as you see there, to help pull that officer to safety. And only on 13, we're hearing from that man.
Just incredible seeing that video. And so we're seeing all of it happening up close, a view of what it was like. And so take a look here at the body camera that was being worn by that Good Samaritan as bullets were literally flying past him.
Come this way!
John Lally told us that he feels he was put in the right place at the right time in order to save that officer.
I just kind of ran over there and I grabbed that guy with the other police officer, and me and him together, we grabbed him by his vest and we dragged him behind the truck, and I kind of tucked him underneath the truck so he wouldn't get shot again.
Wow, incredible. Lally stayed with the wounded officer, trying his best to provide some sort of comfort as they waited for paramedics to arrive.
It's just your leg. It's just your leg, you hear me? Just squeeze my hand as tight as you have to, you know what I'm saying? Don't worry, I'm here with you.
Wow.
You hear me?
Officials reported that the officer suffered one gunshot wound to the leg and is currently receiving treatment. Lally told us one of the officer's family members reached out to thank him.
Wow, what an incredible piece of video, as well as a magnanimous gesture on this guy's part to save that police officer's life, literally. While bullets are flying, that's very impressive. It wasn't, and you might wonder, what's a civilian wearing a body cam for? I think it was misspoke by the anchor there, because it was his cell phone video that he was using at the time, but saving an officer's life. It was interesting what he said about you're going to be all right. You were shot in the leg. That can be fatal as well. We lost one of our finest Savannah police officers about 30 years ago in one of these night shootings early morning. He took a round in the leg, and he had his vest on and everything else, but the vest doesn't cover the leg, and it hit his artery, and he bled out before the paramedics could get to him. And it was truly sad, and we lost a fine officer here because of that. So sometimes, bullet in the leg is nothing to sneeze at. That can be a fatal wound. Hopefully the officer will make a full recovery and be back on duty anytime soon. This is not an easy job, but we're doing a series here called Meet the Chiefs. And we've already met Gil Ballard, did a story on him last week, the police chief in Garden City. Jeff Hadley, the police chief of Chatham County, the Chatham County Police Force, is going to be our guest tomorrow, one of our guests tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then on Monday, as we continue our series to meet our police chiefs around here and the people who are involved in law enforcement, and those who are, a big salute to you. So that's going to about wrap it up for us today. Brittany will be back tomorrow, but let me remind you, if you can share this with all of your friends, by all means do so. And we need your help. We're kind of sweating blood to make payment around here, because it isn't cheap to run this operation. So anything you can do to encourage sponsors, if you own a business, consider advertising with us. Tell the people who are spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars with the nationally owned, corporate-owned television stations around here. How about investing in something local? The old story about buy local. By all means, you can make a donation right there on our website at thelocalspin.com. That's thelocalspin.com, all one word. And consider that part of your help. And those of you who have businesses, you can write this off on a donation. We'll explain to you how to do that. If you want to get in touch with us at thelocalspin.com, send us an email, and we'll explain how all that happens. We can get you a letter and a certificate so that you can send it to the Internal Revenue Service. Let them know that you have made a donation to help us out. It can be used as a loss. So please check us out and share this with your friends. That's going to wrap it up for us. Stay safe. Stay real. Brittany's back tomorrow. Godspeed.